Friends, we really do have everything. We're a band of outrageous lovers. For some reason, we've been drawn together, just like particular atoms are drawn together to form molecules. We're a molecule, right? We're a superorganism. We love each other madly. We're having dinner together, and we have a mad commitment. We're going to tell the new story. So just delighted to be together. And our intention is clear. Our intention is, at this moment in which we're poised between utopia and dystopia, we understand that the source, right, the root cause of the breakdown is the failure of story. Not story which is a conjecture, not story which is contrived or made up, but the failure of a deep, validated story based on the most profound integration of all the different wisdom streams, pre-modern, modern, and postmodern, integrated together synergistically into the fabric, the weave of a new story, right? A whole greater than the sum of the parts. And this new story is a new story of value. And it's rooted in first principles and first values. And at this moment, when global coordination is the single biggest challenge, as we face potential catastrophic and potential existential risk, and we need to coordinate right to the fundamental challenges of our age, none of which are local, all of which are global. And we can't coordinate. There's no global coordination. There's no global coherence. There's no global intimacy. The reason there's no coordination or coherence is because there's what we call a global intimacy disorder. That's one of the core terms in what we call cosmoerotic humanism. And cosmoerotic humanism is the name we've given to the new story. And like Romanticism in the 19th century, or existentialism in the 20th century, right, our hope, our vision, and our intention is that cosmoerotic humanism should become a fundamental story in the world, and ultimately the shared global story. And our shared global story, it's not the hegemony of one set of opinions. The shared global story is a context for our diversity. The shared global story is a context for our diversity, but it's the context in which there's a shared grammar of value. And it's only a shared grammar of value that allows us to actually find each other, to create intimacy between each other. We're part of the same story. And we can only respond to the challenges of fate that threaten to obliterate the future of humanity, not the planet will be here, but of humanity, if we actually have a common destiny. You can't create only a covenant of fate. Let's help each other because we have a common fate. It doesn't work. That's what the environmental movement didn't understand, right? Common fate, planet Earth, let's bring everyone together. It won't happen. You can only create global coordination if we have a common destiny. Coordination, we have common ordinating values. Coherence is a function of intimacy. Intimacy is the function of a shared story. If we don't have a shared story of value, then we respond to COVID, for example, exactly as we have. We vaccinate the wealthier part of the world. We straggle, right, in vaccinating, right, the people in the world who can't afford vaccination, right? We create polarization by broken information ecologies about the nature of vaccines and how they work and how we should respond to them. We don't create, right, a shared grammar of value where facts are all on the table and all the sides are talking to each other. Polarization upon polarization, right? It's a strange moment when you have this pandemic, which is a virus that doesn't know national boundaries, and yet national boundaries and regional blocks actually completely divide between and against each other in dealing with this pandemic as if it could be handled country by country, which is obviously patently absurd. But the pandemic, my friends, which is becoming endemic, is but a dress rehearsal. It's a dress rehearsal for real catastrophic risk. It's a dress rehearsal for real potential existential risk. And our very future is on the line. All of our present is on the line. Our commitment to receive the baton from the past, and to complete the great work of the past is on the line. So all of the past is on the line, and all the future is on the line. Right? All the future unborn generations have only one voice in the world, and that's us. So how do we respond? So what we're saying here is we can't just respond, friends, with good new infrastructure ideas or with good new social structures. We need, and these are words from Manfred Harris, right, a great social theorist, we need new superstructure, which means a new story, a new worldview, right? A shared grammar of value that's a context for our diversity. And it's only when we have a shared grammar of value, then we know, what does it mean to have a good life? How do we actually find joy? You can't split anymore. And this is the big sentence. This is a new way of saying it. And it's gorgeous. Then we're going to dive into this movie. You can't split anymore my personal story from the larger universe story. Does that make sense? I'm going to tell you guys a little secret, okay? But just keep this between us. Let me go to the chat box for a second. I'm going to tell you a secret now, but do I have a commitment, everyone, that you're not going to share what I'm about to say? Who's got a commitment? Anyone got a commitment? You're not going to share this? We good? Okay. So here we go. I like Westerns, like American Westerns. So I was exhausted the other day. I'd worked like 16, 17, 18 hours. It was an exhausting day. I couldn't quite sleep. So I turned on an old Western called Silverado, right? Silverado. It's a great Western. You got to see it. And the great thing about Silverado is that the structure of the world's okay, right? We're not worried about the structure, right? There's value in the world, and there's the good guys and the bad guys. And you've got the guys who stand for ethics and integrity, and they stand for goodness, and you've got the bad guys who are filled with greed, and it's all very clear who everyone is, right? And the good guys win. It was such a pleasure, right? Complete joy, Silverado. That's not where we are in the world today, right? We actually don't understand that actually, now stay close to me, it's not about which president, right? It's not about which president is at play. That's not how it works, friends. That's exactly wrong. It's not about who the bad guy is. And what Adam McKay said was, which is really deep and important thing to say, was it's actually an amalgamation of actually the last four presidents. And there's a little bit of Obama and a little bit of Clinton, a little bit of Bush and a little bit of Trump. And his point was that the underlying structural issues are what are challenging us today. Right? We all know that Trump was an egregious problem, but we try and have a bad guy, right? We try and have a bad guy, right? So what Adam McKay said, Meryl Streep ducked the question. It was Adam McKay who said that actually is an amalgamation of all these presidents, because the issue today is not actually which president. It's not a good guy, bad guy issue today. There's something broken in the essential narrative that's driving culture. We're driven by a success story. And the success story is governed by rivalrous conflict. And rivalrous conflict is governed by win-lose metrics. That's the story we all live in. Am I successful? Right? Not am I devotional? Not am I good? Not am I true? Am I successful? And that lives inside of us and in every department in every government, in every family, in every interaction, right? Between governments, between departments, between organizations, between sections of organizations, between sections of businesses. It's all win-lose metrics all the way down, all the way up. That's the very source code of culture that drives our extraction model, that drives our exponential growth curves, that drives, right, our broken hospitals, right? That drives, right, the entire set of factors that lead directly to all forms of catastrophic and existential risk. That drives how we're dealing with vaccines today, both their distribution and bringing together the facts, right? The whole thing is animated and driven by, am I successful or am I not? And successful means, right, win-lose metrics, right? That's a disaster, sweethearts. So friends, come together here. We're going to now look at the final week. And what week are we? Are we on the 5th week, right, or the 6th week? What week? Tell me, somebody. Okay, who's the 5th week? 5th week, thank you. We're on the 5th week of looking at Don't Look Up. And and this is this movie by Adam McKay. And we're not here to say this is what Adam McKay thought. That's not our issue. And I shared with you a few weeks ago that my friend Lana Wachowski made a set of movies, The Matrix, and Lana and I spent, many years ago, a night right at her apartment in Chicago with Karen talking about one of the movies he made. Actually, it was called then V for Vendetta. And I was saying to him, hey, this is what the movie means. And he's saying, no. And it doesn't matter that he made the movie. It's not about what the movie maker thinks. It's about what the movie says. And the movie often talks unconsciously. The movie culture finds its way and speaks through the movie, whatever the intention of the filmmakers are. So we're not interpreting this text, what was Adam McKay or the writers thinking. We're saying this movie appears in culture, and it's actually the invisible scenes, the scenes that are barely noticed, that speak, right, way beyond the, like, wow, right, way beyond, right, what the actual text says. So this is week 5. If you haven't been here up to now, that's totally perfect. Complete welcome. You can dive in right here. Now, I want to say one other thing. Okay, with permission, everyone, we good? Everyone good? We're here. We're alive. We're awake. We're ready to go. Right? Can we have a drum roll? Let's set our intention. Our intention is for the sake of the evolution of love. Our intention is we're ready. Right? We ask this question every week. Right? Are you ready to play a larger game? Who's ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Right? We're ready to play a larger game. We're ready to play a larger game. Are we ready to act as revolutionaries for the sake of the evolution of love? For the sake of telling the new story of value as a context for our diversity, for the sake of responding and taking responsibility for the future. Oh my God. Okay, we're at a dinner party. Here's a dinner party. We're at a dinner party now, right? We invited everyone. We're all at a dinner party. Right? Welcome to the dinner party. Everyone here ready for the dinner party? We're going to be going to dinner tonight, right? We're going to end tonight with a huge conversation about a dinner party. Okay? So I brought a drink. Cheers, everybody. Right? Everyone got, if you've got a little salud or a l'chaim, you got a little food, right? Right? You can grab something from the refrigerator. We're going all the way. We're having a dinner party together this week. Okay? So who's got some food? Okay? So raise a glass. Let's raise a glass, everyone. Right? This is what Plato did at the symposium. This is what Plato did at the symposium, right? And if you're sitting with someone, raise your glass. Plato's symposium was people gathered at a dinner party to talk about the deepest issues of life, right? And life and death, and to chart the future. So here we are at our dinner party. We're at Plato's symposium, right? We're ready to go all the way, right? And we're going to cheers. We've got to drink a little bit. Okay. So here we go. Step 1. Okay? Step 1. Now, what we're going to do, friends, is we're going to show a clip, then we're going to discuss the clip. Now, a little secret, today's 90 minutes, so I'm going to get to the 3 most important clips at the end, right? And I know that some people will have left, and I know that we have this sense in culture of kind of pop culture. I come in for an hour, I leave. I get that. But that's not the way to go deep. If you've got a schedule, of course, go. Blessings, mad love, obviously, right? My friends, some of them who did something called the intellectual dark web, right? Some I know, some I don't know, right? But they're colleagues. We're thinking together, right? In the intellectual dark web, right, the general clip is 3 hours, right? Because this is where people go deep, and they're getting huge amount of participation, right? Because people are tired of getting entertained for a few minutes. So we're not doing entertainment. Now, next week, we're going back to our usual, kind of 60 minutes. But this week, we're going kind of in and all the way. And we're going to leading up to the dinner party and the clips at the end. Okay? So in some sense, the way we're going to frame the conversation today, okay? I want to read you something, is we're going to look at who we are as a culture and who we are as human beings. And we know that by how we respond to death. We know that by how we respond to death. And how we respond to death is actually everything. It tells us who we are. And I want to just read you, right, something from Rilke. Rilke's writing to a friend of his, a countess. And, right, he says, our effort, I suggest, can be dedicated to this, to assume the unity of life and death, and to stop standing in opposition to death, right? So long as we stand in opposition to death, we will disfigure it. Death is our friend, dear Countess. Death is our closest friend, perhaps the only friend that can never be tricked by our ploys and deceptions and vacillations. Death is our friend precisely. Now, I want you to get the sense, because we're going to be looking at these clips today, right? Death is our friend precisely because it brings us into absolute and passionate presence with all that is there. I want you to get that sentence, right? Death is our friend precisely because it brings us into absolute and passionate presence with all that is there, that is natural, that is love. Life always says yes and no at the same time, but it's only death that really says yes. Death stands before eternity. Get this sentence. This is for you, Enika, right? Death stands before eternity and says only yes. This is a very deep passage from Rilke, and I want to get it together. Life exists beyond death. That's absolutely true. That's a big conversation that we've had about a year ago, 2 years ago. We'll have more of it. And I'm trying to complete, between other books, a full book on death now. But that's not what we're talking about now. We also confront death in this lifetime. The fact that there's life beyond death doesn't mean that we don't have to have, in order to be human, a fundamental experience of moving towards our death. And instead of engaging in what Ernest Becker called the denial of death, it's only when I confront my death full on that I become alive, that I actually know who I am, that I know what I value. It's only when I confront my death full on that I'm able in any way to say a full yes. This is a very big deal. So when I confront the first shock of existence, which is when humanity realizes at the dawn of history, oh, the individual human's going to die. And when every individual human actually brings into, when you bring into your interior the knowledge of your death, that's when you're born. That's when you begin to choose deeply and choose wisely. That's when you begin to realize the full preciousness of your life and that every choice matters and that it's all wildly meaningful and alive and you're desperately needed by all that is, right? It's a big deal. And when we confront the second shock of existence, not the death of the individual human, but we're now confronting today the potential death of humanity, then as humanity, we wake up and we have to actually claim who we are. What does it mean to be a human being? We can't avoid the issue anymore like we've done for the last 200, 300 years of modernity. Right? What does it mean to be a human being? What is value? What's intrinsically meaningful and not made up? What matters more than anything? And in some sense, whatever the movie makers thought, what the movie's about in its core is about these different responses to death. These are the different responses to death. So we have the Rilke quote, right, as our frame. And now let's take a look together, right, at the different responses that we have to death itself. And again, I'm going to start with, in a certain sense, the less important clips, but each one's important. But I want to go through them relatively quickly till we get to the key clips. But we're going to go specifically in order because these are sets of responses to death, which tell you actually, right, what is actually my philosophy of life? Who am I for real? What is society's philosophy of life? And here's the thing, it matters. It matters because actually each one of us matters infinitely and we're accountable. We're accountable means we count. And how we live our life and how we make our choices matters. It actually creates the next lifetime, right? What's going to happen to us, right? The next stage of our journey, we are the writers of the screenplay of the next movie of our lives. When this movie ends, we go into the next movie. That's the best way to summarize, right, the great traditions, right, of interior science. When this movie ends, we go into the next movie. What we're doing in this lifetime is we're literally writing the script for the next movie. Now, there's an enormous amount of interior and exterior sciences, right, to actually point out that actually there is this next movie. The next movie is not a belief. It's not a dogma, right? It's actual real information about the structure of reality. I've talked about that in earlier weeks. We're not going to engage that today. I'm going to take that as a given. But I want to kind of get the image. What I'm doing in this lifetime is I'm actually living fully alive and writing the text, the screenplay. I'm writing who I'm going to be. I'm writing my part, right? I'm writing the movie of the next stage of my life after death. That's shocking. That's like, wow. And so actually how we find each other today, how we step in, how we reach for wisdom, how we deepen, how we transform today, how we love each other today, right? What we're doing is we're actually writing the text, the screenplay of our next movie, both as individual human beings, but also as humanity. And so here we go, right? We're outrageous lovers, right? Outrageous lovers means we're outrageously committed to each other and to the future of love, to the evolution of love, to the future of this planet, to the future of humanity, to the future of life. So that's how we're coming together. Here we go. So what we're going to do is let's take a look at the first clip. This one's going to be super short. This is 9. Let's take a look at it. This is 9D. So as Christina Amlon brings up the clip, I'm going to tell you what 9D is about. Kate, right, who is Kate Biaski in the movie, who's Jennifer Lawrence, who's identified the comet and who's friends with Randall Mindy, right? Kate at the beginning of the movie has a boyfriend, okay? And there's like 4 scenes with her boyfriend and what he goes through. And what you're going to see is there's a moment where he realizes that humanity might die. And let's look what that moment did to him. Because what it's all about is in each one of the scenes we're going to see is how I respond, right, to that place where I can no longer deny death. Death has broken through. I know the skull grins at the banquet. What does that knowing, what does that realization do for me? Scene 1 coming at you.
They want us on a show called The Daily Rip first thing in the morning before the article comes out. You guys know what the Daily Rip is?
It's like the best show. Everyone wants to be on it. Bree and Jack, they've got legendary chemistry. They asked me to go on once. I was so excited I couldn't sleep for 2 nights, but then they cut me for time. Still hurts me to think about that.
Another show. I know what show you're talking about. My wife loves that show.
Okay, yeah. Can you just tell me what this is all about, okay? Because you haven't read my article on Colin getting hard in the art class, and now a dude really has come down from this mountaintop for your thing. You won't even give me a lousy pronoun? Come on.
A comet bigger than the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs is headed directly at Earth. If it isn't deflected, the entire planet dies.
Wait, what'd you just say?
It's for a video game.
Are you being serious?
Yes.
Oh my God. But that, oh my God. What the fuck, man?
That prick!
People, they want to manage the comet to create jobs. 37% don't want the comet to hit at all. That's actually down by 3 points. And 23%, they don't think there's a comet at all. And that number is way up.
Also, Philip, I was being told that you've written a book about your past relationship with Kate Dibiaski.
Funny you should say that. I'm actually working on that right now. It's going to be called Brush with the Devil. And it's hopefully going to...
Let's just get what just happened, okay? So the first scene, Kate's going out with Philip, and she actually tells him on the way to the show where she's going to share with the world, that's the beginning of the movie with DiCaprio, they're going to share with the world that the comet's coming. She tells him, and did you see what happened? Everyone see what happens? He gets it, right? So he's taken death in, right? How many people know what I'm talking about? Get what I'm talking about in that scene. Everyone got that? But he actually took death in there in a kind of real and serious way, just in the chat box. Who got that? Who saw that happening? That was the point of it, right? He's taken it in. Now, what happens though now? What happens after he takes it in? It actually destroys him. And it's now nothing matters to him anymore because he has no sense of first principles and first values. So what does he then do? Right then, when his girlfriend goes crazy on the show, and now she's getting hit on social media, he dumps her. Right? I slept with that girl. Right? He dumps her without calling her. So all human communication, all human love, all human depth, right, disappears. It's gone. He dumps her on social media. She says, that prick. And then later, he becomes a television commentator because he's associated with her. He gets some fame. So he gets some status in the rivalrous conflict, win-lose metrics success story game. And right, he says 23% of the people don't even think there's a comet. He's just reporting on it, meaning he's completely removed any real relationship with existential risk. He's involved in he's got a new job, right? He's a commentator. And then they say, oh, you're working on a book, aren't you? He says, yeah, it's called A Brush with the Devil, right? About me, right, being with Kate, right? So what he's done is he takes death in. Remember in the first class, he can't breathe. Then he can't hold it. He can't hold it. So what he does is he just throws it out of his system. He dissociates from it. You know the word dissociates, everyone? He's completely dissociated from the experience of death. He reports, he knows Kate. He knows she's reliable. He knows she's a trustworthy scientist, but he can't. He just re-engages the absolute denial of death. He's now, in his own experience, he has no sense of value because he has no sense of first principles and first values. So he betrays love, right? So this response to death is the betrayal of love. Wow. Now just notice, go online, take a look at all the interpretations, right, of this movie. These scenes aren't even mentioned. What we've done is we've gathered scenes together. We've edited them together so you can begin to see the pattern. Because reading a movie and reading the text and reading the text of culture and reading the text of your life and my life, same process. You can never look at an individual situation. You got to see what's the code, what's the pattern, right? Where is it going? And then meaning begins to appear. Okay, so that's one. That's the betrayal of love. We're going to go now to 7G. Okay, and these are going to be the scenes, right, with Peter Isherwell, who's the head of BASH. Now, remember who BASH is? BASH is the conglomerate. BASH is the conglomerate, the corporation that's kind of running the whole thing behind the scenes. And this is what, in that conversation that I mentioned at the beginning with Meryl Streep and Adam McKay, and in that conversation, right, Adam McKay says, it doesn't matter who the president is, right? There's a win-lose metric, a success story that's underlying who the president is. That's the structure of everything. That's what's driving things. So in this movie, that's represented by Peter Isherwell, who's the head of BASH. Remember, he's the guy with the funny voice. He keeps saying to everyone, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Remember that guy. Get some popcorn. Everyone got popcorn? Popcorn, easy listening, total watching. We're going to have a fabulous conversation after these 9 minutes. But again, staying in the 9 minutes. Okay, sweethearts? Here we go.
Introducing BASH Life. Life without the stress of living.
Before we introduce the founder and CEO of BASH, please remember to avoid direct eye contact, sudden movements, coughing, or negative facial expressions. And now, please welcome Sir Peter Isherwell.
Life's work, really, I see, has been driven by an inexpressible need for a friend who would understand and soothe me. And you know, now all those years of work have come to fruition with BASH Life. Our new BASH 14.3 phone is fully integrated into your every feeling and desire without you needing to say one single word. If I feel
sad, afraid, or alone,
the BASH 14.3 phone, when set to the life setting, instantly senses my mood through blood pressure, heartbeats, and...
Your vitals show that you are sad. This will cheer you up, Peter.
You are my best friend. You are my best friend. And you really like you. You make me happy, best friend.
That video. It also, seriously, schedules a therapy session with a nearby professional so we can make sure that these sad feelings never, ever, ever return.
May I say something, Mr. Richard?
No. And to support Bash Life, I want to officially announce...
Give me the phone, sir, not yours.
Bye, Mr. Chewell. Bye, Peter. I love you, Peter.
Are you sure that the video of the puppy on the rooster is optimizing our prepubescent sense memory consumer sector? I find the bird quite threatening. Madam President, may I have a word with you outside for a moment, please?
Mission success probability is already increased to 81%.
Janie,
no! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Peter, I didn't mean... Peter. Peter?
Oh, thank you, Janie. As some of you may know, the most valuable minerals in the world are fast becoming those that are deployed in the manufacture of cell phones and computers. Yttrium, terbium, osmium, dysprosium, on and on and on. We're running short. And the problem is exacerbated, of course, because China has her big panda paw firmly on almost all the mines that produce these valuable rare earth acids. So you can imagine, wow, just how happy we were at Bash from when our astrogeologists discovered and then determined that this comet hurtling towards us from deep space actually contains at least $32 trillion of these critical materials, critical to technology.
I'm sorry, is that why you aborted this entire mission? Is because you're trying to mine the comet
Dr.
for
Mindy,
rare
I
minerals?
think we should hold all questions until the end of the presentation, and you might find that your questions are answered.
Yes, Madam President.
When the other metals are factored in, the comet actually contains almost $140 trillion worth of assets.
$140 trillion.
Yeah.
What do these trillions of dollars even matter if we're all going to die from the impact of this comet?
I was about to ask the same question, Janie.
Yeah, Janie, why wouldn't we consult?
In all due respect, Madam President.
Oh, no! What if we're rich and we're safe?
Obviously, one giant comet is a major and existential threat to our planet, but 30 smaller meteoroids we can handle. Our beads, that stands for BASH, Explore and Acquire Drones, as you see here, attach themselves to the comet and scan it with nanotechnology developed by a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, Dr. Gary Talcott. And then we immediately deploy, don't we, Nobel and Pulaski Prize-winning scientist, Dr. Inez's micro-targeted quantum fission explosives, you see, deep into the object. Dr. Inez, would you like to explain what's happening?
Thank you, Peter. We've been developing phase fission reactions in the CERN particle accelerator that can splinter the comet into smaller pieces with breathtaking accuracy. These segments are then steered and decelerated by each bead into the Pacific Ocean for reclamation by waiting U.S. Navy ships.
And when these, thank you, and when these treasures from heaven are claimed, poverty as we know it, social injustice, loss of biodiversity, all these multitudes of problems are just going to become relics of the past, and humanity is going to stride through the pillars of Boaz and Joachim naked into the glory of a golden age, interplanetary, interstellar, intergalactic existence for the human race. That's what we're saying.
Are you at all concerned about the sync on the bead explosions? I know the study shows how the questions, comet could...
fears.
All right.
I have a report here from a Dr. Inez, and just take a look at this study.
Oh, thanks.
Listen, a lot of my colleagues. They've either been removed or resigned from this project, apparently for asking too many questions about this mission here. So I just want to make sure that you're open to the scientific peer review process and you're not approaching this entire mission like a businessman, you know?
What did you say?
I want to know if you're...
Did you call me a businessman?
You do own a corporation.
Do you think I'm just a businessman? Do you think you know me, doctor? No. Business? This is evolution. This is evolution of the human species. What are you doing bringing this? Do you know that Bash has over 40 million data points on you and every decision you have made since 1994, doctor? I know when you have colon polyps months before your doctor does. You've got 4 or 5 at the moment, actually. You know, they're not concerned, but I'd have a checkup as soon as you can. But more importantly than that, much more importantly than that, I know what you are. I know who you are. My algorithms have determined 8 fundamental consumer profile types. You are a lifestyle idealist. You think you're motivated by beliefs, high ethical beliefs, but you just run towards pleasure and away from pain. Like a field mouse.
I just want to make sure that the science is sound on this project. I hope you understand.
Our algorithms can even predict how you'll die to 96.5% accuracy. I looked you up after we met. Your death was so unremarkable and boring. I can't remember the details, apart from one thing. You're gonna die alone. Alone.
President Xi of China says that the comet is still whole.
We got 4 misfires and sync was off.
It's still intact.
What was that?
We've got 4 misfires and the sync was off.
Okay. We're all fine. Everyone's fine. It's gonna be all right. If you'll excuse me, nature calls. I'm just gonna go to the restroom for a moment.
So here we go, friends. Let's take a look at this. This is a very big deal. So let's go through this together. Okay. So this is the second figure in the movie. Peter Isherwell, head of BASH. So how does he start? How does he start? And let's find each other. If you're listening to the replay, listen. That's fantastic. Gorgeous to be together with you. If you're here live, also perfect. Just let's find each other in the chat box so we can see each other. Okay. Right. See each other, meaning if we want to write something. So number one, right, here's the first thing. How does he start? Right. He comes out onto the podium. Clearly, it's a high-tech kind of scene. And he's surrounded by 3 young children, 2 girls, a boy. What is he says? He says, the goal of BASH is life without the stress of living. Does everyone get that line? Life without the stress of living. That's a big deal. So meaning the stress of living, and there's some very, very good science today, right? That stress actually is not something to be avoided. Stress is the creative tension of being alive. It's the creative tension of the dignities of our free will, the dignities of our choice. When I try and create life without the stress of living, that's exactly what B.F. Skinner, the behaviorist psychologist who thought that human beings are purely material and there's no meaning and there's no value. And he wrote a book called Walden 2 in 1948. And he's actually the hidden architect of the internet today. And God willing, Goddess willing, I'm trying to complete a book on that called Techno-Feudalism with my dear friend, Zachary Stein. But the hidden architect of the internet is B.F. Skinner. And his goal is to create life without the stress of living. That's Walden 2, right? You don't have to choose. It's no more stress. It's all taken care of. That's step one. Now, step two, let's just stay close because we're going to see now how this actually creates a response to death. So that's one. Now, here's two. So what the structure of the internet does right? Developed by what's called, what it's a name that I created with Zach. We call it techno-feudalism, right? The techplex that actually creates our environment. The environment we live in today is technology. So technology is no longer, and I want to get this distinction, technology is no longer a tool. Technology has become an environment. I'm going to check in the chat box. How many people get what I mean by that distinction? It's not a tool anymore. It's an environment. We live in that environment. We can't afford not to live in that environment. And the younger we are, the more we live in that environment. So my son, age 11, Zion, right? He lives in that environment, but we all do in certain ways. We're all forced to in certain ways. We're all engaged. Our attention is hijacked. We live in that environment. So this environment, what it does is, step 3, it hijacks human values, commodifies them, uses them for manipulation, right? And actually, B.F. Skinner writes in his book, Beyond Freedom and Dignity, he says, we control human beings because they're manipulable, means we can manipulate them by manipulating their interior experience. And B.F. Skinner wasn't evil, by the way. I want to get this is very important. He wasn't evil. B.F. Skinner thought that actually controlling human beings and creating what he called Walden 2, exactly what Peter Isherwell is describing in this movie, right? Remember, B.F. Skinner is the architect of the internet. If we can create an environment without friction where we can manipulate and control human beings, then we're going to actually respond, says B.F. Skinner, to existential risk. B.F. Skinner was one of the first people to think about existential risk. And he basically said, if you've got 7.5 billion human beings running around on the planet and there's no grammar of value, how are we going to control this out of control, insane situation? So we're going to have to do, he said, is we're going to have to actually use the digital frame. And B.F. Skinner in the 1970s was one of the key people in the development behind the scenes of the internet, of something that was called the Plato system. The Plato system is a very important book on it by an independent scholar, was the early architects of the internet before anything that we recognize as the internet existed. And at the center of this group, envisioning the internet, was B.F. Skinner. Wow. Right? It's called The Orange Glow is the name of the book. And it charts what's called the Plato system. So B.F. Skinner, this behaviorist psychologist, and his students like Alex Pentland from the MIT Media Lab, they organized the internet as a place where we can kind of control the human being. Now, people are really completely unaware that B.F. Skinner's behind the internet, but you can sense that quality. You're getting manipulated. So what's being manipulated? What's being manipulated is actually that which is most precious. What's the next line? We're now in clip 1. Next line is, right? I've always had a need for a friend. You get that? Right? The internet's based on manipulating authentic human emotions. It says, I've had a need for a friend, right? And we're going to give you that friend. So your friend is going to be now social media. Your friend's going to be the internet. And look what happens, right? I mean, it's actually shocking, right? He says, we have so much information about you. Where did this information come from? But actually what's happening on the internet now, what the structure of the business model of the internet is that data points are collected about you by what's called the digital exhaust, meaning every move you make on the internet, whether it's how long your mouse hovered before you clicked, and every pattern of your behavior, right, is mapped by machine intelligence without you knowing. Every data point that you've ever done, but not just something you actually did. It's not which website you went to look at. No, it's much more subtle. Every move you make is fed into machine intelligence. Like I just said a second ago, like how long your mouse hovers, which gives you psychological information on who you are and what your pattern of viewing is and what days of the week and what times of the day. All of that is fed into machine intelligence that then creates a personality profile on you. And then that personality profile is sold by the techno-feudalists, which are the major tech giants in the world, is sold right to third parties. So the product of the internet is selling predictive analysis to third parties who are interested in manipulating you. Right? That's actually the product, the business model of the web. That's a big deal. And that is actually exactly what Bash says here. right? But he doesn't tell you this is happening. He says, no, we have all these, data points on you, and we can tell when you're sad or afraid, and you don't even need to say something, and we're going to immediately take care of you. Does everyone get that? The word for that in English is infantilization. We're going to regress you to being a baby, right? We're going to regress you to being a child. You're completely manipulable, B.F. Skinner's phrase. You're completely controllable, right? You've become an infant again. You're actually not traveling up from Eden. You're actually regressing. It's a regressive move when you go back to a false Garden of Eden. Okay? Now, stay close. How do you know that this is manipulation? So do you remember when the girl on the stage, who remembers this, right, in the chat box, the girl on the stage, may I say something, Mr. Isherwell? Do you remember that? No, it just goes on. Now go deeper. Then after they come out of the stage, and why are those three children on stage? Anyone, why are those three children on stage? One word. Why are those three children on stage? Manipulation. Does everyone get that? Manipulation. Right? But cute means, in other words, we're going to appeal to your sense of children and innocence to manipulate you. Right? So it's a false innocence. Right? Exactly. Now, stay close. Then, as soon as they get out, win-lose metrics, power and profit, what does the person who's working for Bash say to them? Put your phones back. They're not yours. Right? So that's right. Power and profit. And then the girl says to Mr. Isherwell, who remembers? Chat box. Who remembers what the girl says to Mr. Isherwell? Anyone? Who remembers? I love you. And I love you. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? We're going to talk about when we get to the last three clips, it's going to be all about I love you. And what is his response, right, to the girl who's the goddess? She's the innocent 10-year-old goddess. And she's looking at him with those eyes. And she's saying, I love you. What's his response? He can't even hear. Did you get that? He can't even hear her. There's no response, meaning he doesn't dismiss her. There's no conversation, meaning there is no friendship, meaning the entire thing's a manipulation, meaning there is no love, right? Those are just words used, right, to hijack attention. He literally, right, can't even hear her. Okay, so that's clip one. Now, let's take a look for a second. What's clip two? So clip two is, right, anyone remember in the chat box, clip two, right? They're going, what's clip two? I don't remember what clip two is. This is the moment in which the mission is launching. Does everyone get that? The mission is launching. Mission is launching, right? The nuclear warheads can actually 1,000% take down the comet, right? And as they're launching and everyone's excited and the copter is, yes, we've got 85% success in the mission, right? What does Isherwell say? Can I have a word with you, Madam President? And she doesn't respond immediately. And then his voice gets harsh. Then the mask drops. Who catches what he said? Janie, now. Everyone catch that? So, oh, I'm sorry, Peter. So now where's the power? The power is not with the president. The power is with the win-lose metrics success story that's operating behind the scenes, no matter who the president is. The issue today is structural. We won't change it by changing a president or a prime minister. That's actually, democracy today has become very much a distraction. We think we're voting, right, for new directions. We're not. There's very little difference between the major powers, right? What's actually at play is what's the structure that's driving the whole thing. And that's the point of that scene. Now, what does he do? He actually stops the mission, right? The missiles turn around. Clip three. Now we go to clip three. Okay, clip three. So clip three is, everyone remember where it is? You're now in the Oval Office. Okay? And Isherwell, right, he actually names and he says, oh, wow, there's existential threat. Right? Remember that? Who caught that? That there's an existential threat, the comet. And what does he say? Like, what does he say? He says, there's enormous potential to extract $140 trillion of, minerals. There's no tested technology like a nuclear warhead, but he says, but we've developed this new technology. He calls in a Nobel Prize winner. Because I want to tell you something very sad, friends. Nobel Prize winners are for sale, just like anyone else. We think science is the source of objectivity, but actually the structure of science and funding today means that there's a medical industrial complex of corrupt medicine. Tragically, there's lots of gorgeous doctors and nurses, but the structure, right, the Nobel Prize structure, right, behind the scenes, the Nobel Prize scientists are subject to rivalrous conflict, win-lose metrics, just like anyone else. So he hijacks the nobility of the Nobel Prize. Did everyone get that? That's been hijacked. We think if we hear Nobel Prize, what are we supposed to think? We're supposed to think credible, true, fact, trustable, reliable, which is why Isherwell says twice, right, in that speech, Nobel Prize. And then the Nobel Prize winner actually gets up, the woman, and we think, oh, feminine must be good. No, it's not feminine or masculine. We don't need more feminine values or more masculine values. We need more feminine and masculine values at a higher level of consciousness, right? Does everyone get that? So she speaks, and very persuasively. Now, if you don't know the science, is there any way you can disagree with her? Anybody? Can you disagree with her? Of course you can't. Of course you can't. So what do you have to do? There's no way you can disagree with her. So what do you need? You need trust. But trust is exactly what's missing in this movie, right? The 3-star general, you remember in a clip we saw a couple of weeks ago, sells snacks in the White House for $20 when they're free. The point is the core structure of trust, which is based on first values and first principles, has completely broken down. Okay, now what happens? Now, as he's making the presentation, the kind of music comes on, right? So it's very soft background music. And he says, now stay close. He says, treasures from heaven. Who caught that? Remember that? Treasures from heaven. And then he gives this great speech, this great, and I'm going to introduce a word here, utopian speech. Now, this is actually exactly accurate. The leaders of high tech today, of techno-feudalism, are speaking in a utopian language. So there's a utopianism. We're going to change the world. We're going to reshape the world, right? Right? You start actually to believe Isherwell, you're drawn in, and then he gives this big utopian speech about these great utopian values, right? And biodiversity is going to be restored, and suffering and inequality are relics of the past. Now, there's actually no connection. Stay close. There's actually no connection between actually getting the $140 trillion, which will be then controlled by Bash Enterprises, and solving any of the great existential problems. But the techno-feudalists, right, they disguise, right, the win-lose metrics through utopian rhetoric. Does everyone get that sentence? Now, I want to get even closer. And in some sense, they may believe their own utopian rhetoric. But it's utopianism, sans, meaning without first principles and first values. Does everyone get that? And it's if you don't have first principles and first values, you're seduced by your own utopian rhetoric. And there is literally nothing more dangerous than utopianism without first principles and first values. Who are the two, who's, let's say, the one greatest example in the 20th century of a utopian without first principles and first values? You can 3 tries. First, let's say top 3. Top 3 would be Mao. Mao, right? Mao, the head of China for 30 years, right, who was responsible for more genocide than any other leader during that time. And it's the entire movement of communism is utopian. It's utopianism, but it's utopianism, right, without first principles and first values, or the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot in Cambodia, right? He's a utopian. But when a utopian moves without first principles and first values, you get slaughter. And when the utopian's not, Pol Pot, who has limited power in Cambodia, but the utopians are young men and women who grew up in schools without first principles and first values, like Mark Zuckerberg at Exeter Academy in the United States, where I've had the privilege to give a number of talks and talk to hundreds of students, right? Where Exeter Academy is built on the statement that there are no intrinsic first principles and first values. It wasn't originally built that way, but that's what's happened there in the last 30 years. There's no longer first principles and first values. Mark Zuckerberg comes out of Exeter. Larry Page, Sergey Brin come out of Stanford, right? So this is post-modernity, without first principles and first values, gets married to enormous power of the techplex, driven by unimaginable power gains and profits, which then reach for value by becoming utopians, but their utopianism itself is not grounded in value. Does everyone get that? Does everyone get that? That is exactly where we are today. That's exactly where we are. It's very easy to miss in the movie. And I don't know exactly what the intentions of the movie makers were, but clearly this is the script that culture, right, is putting out today in order to kind of tell us to pay attention. Now let's get closer. Let's get closer. It gets even more dramatic. Let's go to the fourth clip. Who's with us on the fourth clip? Okay, this is the fourth clip. What's happening in the fourth clip? Now DiCaprio is now at the center at Bash. We're now preparing the mission to use these technologies, right, to actually split the comet, right, into 30 different pieces. Does everyone remember that scene? Just give me a yes in the chat box if you remember that scene, just so we're together. Okay, remember that scene? Okay, now what happens in that scene? It's actually quite unbelievable. So what DiCaprio, which Dr. Randall Mindy, says to Peter Isherwell is, he says, you know, I'm a little worried that you're not following a peer-reviewed process. And Dr. Inez and other people have been fired who've actually challenged, right, the science behind this attempt, because that's what happens, right? The scientist with integrity gets fired, which is why most scientists who want to support their family and want to have, right, their own status and their own win-lose metrics don't challenge. And that's exactly what happens. And at this point, there's this incredible moment in which DiCaprio, Dr. Randall Mindy, says to Peter Isherwell, he says, I hope you're not treating this like just like a business, like as a businessman. Does everyone remember what happens? And then he gets furious. Isherwell's mask drops and he says, right, you think you're calling me a businessman? Right? He gets nasty. He says, you know me? You think you know me? You don't know me. I am speaking for evolution. You ever get that? That's a utopian, right? Evolutionary, I said this to my dear friend Barbara Marx Hubbard many times. Evolutionary thought without first principles and first values is the most dangerous thought in the world. It produces social Darwinism. It produces eugenics. It produces Pol Pot. It produces today's utopians in the techplex that have created not just the tools, but the environment in which we live. And this is where the revolution has to happen. So let's see what happens. And he says, you think you know me? Now stay close. He says, Bash has 40 million data points on you. You got that? Wow. He says, I know what you are. I know who you are. Now, how many people in the chat box, how many people can get the meanness in that, right? The mask is dropped, right? There's the sense of technocracy, technocratic control, right? There's a sense of complete dissociation, right, from what it means to be a human being. And he said, but then he says something very important to Randall. He says to Randall, he says, you know, I know what you are and who you are. You're a lifestyle idealist. You think you're motivated by ethical beliefs, but you really run towards pleasure and away from pain. Wow. Now, friends, stay close, friends. Stay close now. Is he right about Randall? Yes. At this moment, he's right. But stay close. Randall's the figure in the movie who's the central figure who goes through a transformation. Okay? So there's certain people in the movie who don't transform. They remain who they are. Peter Isherwell does not transform, right? Philip, Kate's boyfriend, does not transform. Randall goes through a transformation. And transformation is that quality human being where human being feels spirit moving in them, where the human being feels love alive in them, and the human being is able to grow and transform, to exercise choice. But that can't be analyzed by the biometric data fed into machine intelligence on the web. So Isherwell says to DiCaprio, he says, and we can predict how you're going to die, right? You know, and I got to say, I can't even remember. He gets very mean. He says, I can't even remember exactly how you're going to die because it's so Remember the word he uses? Boring and unremarkable. But I know one thing, you're gonna die alone. Everyone catch that? Now stay close. Is he right? Is he right? Is he right? Right? Is he right? Right? Does DiCaprio die alone? No. We're going to see that DiCaprio's got an entirely different response to death, that he doesn't die alone, right? That actually there's a complete transformation of Randall, right? And there's, not only does he not die alone, he dies in a level of intimate communion and beauty and depth that's unimaginable to Isherwell and unimaginable to the algorithm and to the machine intelligence, which reduces human beings to their lowest common denominator, assumes that free will's a myth. Alex Pentland, MIT Media Lab, key hidden student. He doesn't acknowledge his relationship to B.F. Skinner, right? Writes an essay called The Death of Individuality, where he says individuality is a myth and free choice is a myth. It's not real. He gives a talk at Singularity University 4 years ago. He says, we all know here, we're the tech people, we know free will is a myth. Wow, this is real. Okay, so it's a shocking, right? It's a shocking understanding, right? And then what happens in the fifth clip, friends? In the fifth clip, the last clip with Isherwell, right? They're now in the control room at Bash. The mission is failing. And what does Isherwell do? He hasn't changed. He's completely consistent the whole movie. Win-lose metrics, rivalrous conflict. He's got a ship set up. He's going to go to Mars with Elon Musk. Right? He's going to go to another planet. He's going to get off the planet. And who can afford to get off the planet? Only the elite. And everyone else can't afford to get off the planet. Win-lose metrics, he says, it's fine. It's fine. Oh, nature's calling. I'm going to take a break and I'll be back. Right? And he walks out on planet Earth. Does everyone get that? He walks out on planet Earth. Wow. Okay, so that's a set of clips. Now, we brought the clips together to be able to see it clearly. Okay, now stay with us, friends. What we're now going to do is we're now going to cut to, at this moment, we're going to cut to what actually did happen, dear friends. What actually did happen, right, in this incredible moment, right, when actually they're not able to avert the comet. But I want to get this now. This is completely wild. It's how do I respond to death? So we're about to go to the dinner scene. We're about to go to the dinner scene. But before the dinner scene, we need to see something else. So I want to introduce you to one other figure who doesn't change throughout the movie. Okay? I want to introduce you to Bree. Who remembers who Bree is? Bree is the television commentator, the woman, right, who has this affair with DiCaprio. And we're going to come to her scene. It's a critical scene. Who's in? We're ready to go all the way here? Let's go all the way here. Okay. So we're going to go, and this is the clip we're going to look at is 6F, right? This is the television commentator, right? And she's invited to love, right? She's got this opportunity to get beneath the win-lose metrics. She's got this opportunity to actually step into the better angels of her nature. We're going to take a look now at 5 clips, a total of 5 minutes. Get your popcorn out, get your drink, salute. Let's watch these clips, then we're going to talk, and then we're going to go to the dinner scene. Okay, here we go.
Tell me we're all gonna die. What? Oh, tell me we're all gonna die. Do it. We're all gonna die. Oh boy.
I've just realized we don't really know anything about each other, do we?
True. Every time I try to ask you about your life, you seem to just tell me about your favorite restaurants.
Well, I just despise the getting to know you part of relationships. So.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Okay, let's just get it over and done with. So, my grandfather invented the flash freezing process, so I come from grotesque money, but I got away from it by getting 3 master's degrees. I've been divorced twice, One was a Secretary of State, and the other one was a sport fisherman. I have slept with 2 former presidents. I speak 4 languages, and I own 2 monies.
Wow. 2 former presidents. Wow. My turn. All right. Well, my father was a middle school geography teacher. My mother, she cut hair out of the kitchen. About 2 years ago, our family dog, Jojo, died, which was really, really emotional. I can't remember crying that much ever. And I finally got my my Star Wars poster signed by Mark Hamill. It's in the garage. It's yeah.
Okay, good. That's done.
Ah.
Where are we gonna go for dinner tonight?
Les anges s'envolent le ciel.
That French?
Yes, it means the angels soar to the heavens. It's, this 14th century poem we studied in Dartmouth, and just watching this, it just made me think of it. He thought he was the ambassador. I was just flattering him.
Oh, no wonder. Now he's got an ego the size of Texas. Oh my God. June, what are you doing here, sweetie?
Had a feeling something was going on, and
Well, you know, we're discussing important business. I mean, that's what we're doing.
oh yeah, it's really very important.
Oh, can we just skip past this part, please? You know, where you get to feel self-righteous and we put our tails between our legs. It is just so boring.
Oh, it's so boring. You want to skip the part where you feel bad for screwing my husband?
Oh, no, I don't feel bad. Randall and I are having a wonderful time. So I think the question is, do we keep having a wonderful time, or does he go back with you to Wisconsin or Montana, Michigan?
Michigan.
You know, she is actually right. That's the only question. So.
Well, June, sweetie, sometimes in life things are, you know, they're complicated and they just.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was fast. Well, before I go, let me just give you some instructions on how to take care of Randall. Yeah. Here's the Xanax he takes for his panic attacks.
Oh, gosh.
Here's the Zoloft he takes for the crashing depressions.
Not so much recently, okay? You know.
Oh, good for you. Great. This is for his blood pressure. Restless leg syndrome. That's a fun one. Oh, appetite suppressant to counteract the weight gain from his other meds. And for America's sexiest scientist, a bottle of goddamn Cialis.
Ow! Gosh.
Goodbye, Randall. I guess I'll just tell your sons that Dad's fucking the lady on our television.
June,
I really thought for a second that was going to work out. Why'd you do that? I really liked you, and I despise most people.
You know, I really thought I loved you.
Really? Wow. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
Man, we need to go. We gotta get this man off the grid.
You still there?
No.
Set. Or we can fuck. Or
pray or...
Honestly, I think I'd just rather drink and talk shit about people.
Let's take a quick look. All right. Who's together here? Let's take a look. We're about to get to the key scene, but it's really important to see these along the way because these are the characters in the movie who don't change. They're consistent throughout. Okay. Now here's the thing. This is the key, right? They're in the hallway, right? They're in the hallway and she grabs him. It's kind of the beginning of the kind of sexual encounter. And she says, who remembers anyone? She says, tell me I'm going to die. Tell me I'm going to die. Right. And what she's saying is, right, it's arousing, right? Tell me the world's going to end. Tell me I'm going to die. Right. That's getting me aroused. Right. Meaning even existential risk is now hijacked, right, to get me hot. Right. So in other words, the sense of being aroused, the sense of the divinity of desire, the dignity of desire, the utter beauty, right, of fuck and all of its sacred gorgeousness is gone, right? Fuck is a way to actually cover over the emptiness. That's what it is. It's not eros, it's pseudo-eros. And so we'll commodify anything to make fuck work better, right? Even the death of reality, or the death of reality itself. So tell me I'm going to die. So that becomes, right, that becomes the aphrodisiac, as it were, right? That becomes the Viagra, right, of their first sex scene. So that's one. Okay, then two, she says, I hate when they get to know each other scene. Hate to do that. Now here's the key. Does she look like the devil? The answer is she doesn't, right? See, the win-lose metrics, right, doesn't look like the win-lose metrics. Right, the win-lose metrics, right? The devil, and when I say the devil, it's not the Christian devil. The devil meaning that which is challenging the sacred, right? That which is actually creating the conditions for existential and catastrophic risk. It looks completely charming. She is charming, and she is funny, and she's educated, and she's, well articulated. That's really important, but she can't access the inside. She's dissociated from interiors. And so they got to have this conversation. And the conversation, I slept with a couple of presidents. I speak 4 languages, right? So hers are all about status, win-lose metrics, accomplishment. Now here's where you begin to notice something. This is the beginning where you begin to have hope for DiCaprio, although he hasn't yet found himself. What does he say? He talks about his dog, Jojo. He talks, I got Mark Hamill to sign my Star Wars poster, right? None of these are win-lose metrics. They're all the ordinary pleasures of living. Because that's one. Now, the second clip. Everyone remember where the second clip takes place? Right? The second clip takes place where? Right? In the control room where the first mission is happening, where the nuclear warheads are going up before they're called back. And, it's this very emotional, poignant moment, and somehow it breaks through. And it's the only time we see her in her humanity. And we see, now stay close, friends, we see what she might have become. And she speaks French for a moment. And he says, what were you saying? And he says, it's an old French poem from the 14th century that I remember, which says, the angels are soaring to the heavens. Did everyone catch that? And you see her eyes are open and she's a girl for a moment and she's innocent for a moment. And we see what she might have become. And she's not evil. She's not the devil. She's not vicious. She's a person trapped in a world without first principles and first values, where the only story is the success story, rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics, right? And she can't find herself. She can't, right? She can't. And so she becomes the win-lose metric. But here's this moment, right, where everything breaks through just for a second and she finds herself and then she loses it again. Clip 3. Clip 3 takes place in the back seat of the car. Remember that? The back seat of the car? So the clip takes place in the back seat of a car where he's just been on her show and where he screams, everyone's going to die. And he finally finds himself. Right? Randall himself in the movie almost gets trapped by the win-lose metrics. And there's this key scene when he says to Teddy Oglethorpe, right, the African-American man who's a great guy, and he says, I have no choice. What can I do? And Oglethorpe walks away and he says, right, a man's always got choices, Randall. You got to make the right ones. And then we're not sure, will Randall find himself or not? He does. He finds himself in that scene on the show. He realizes, right, what's happening. And he says, stop being so nice. Stop being so pleasant. Right. We got to actually be able to speak to each other. And we've lost the ability to speak to each other. And he erupts in this enormous speech. He's taken off. He's put with a hood over his head in the backseat of the car. They're going to take him off the grid, meaning they're going to take him out of society. She comes into the backseat of the car, and there's this enormous exchange between them, right? And what does she say to him? She says, why did you do that? Meaning you ruined it in terms of the win-lose metrics. And she says, I liked you. I despise most people. And remember what he says? He says, I thought I loved you. And she's like, she doesn't even know what that means. And she stopped for a moment and she says, really? Really? And then he asks her, he says, are you still here? And there's silence for a split second. And this is her moment of decision. This is her moment. Can she stay? And she can't. She doesn't have the interiority, the depth, and she says, no, and she's gone. And I'm just going to look at one more. I'm not going to look at the last scene. I'm just going to look at one last scene. The last scene is now she's facing her death. This is the death scene, okay? Now, before I go to the death scene, I just want to mention one other thing. Do you remember in the bedroom where they say, let's do the get to know each other thing? That was the first clip. Now that they've gotten to know each other, do you remember what she says? It's a throwaway line. What does she say? Let's go to dinner. Who caught that? Did you catch that she said that? Let's go to dinner. That's a key line because that's dinner, which is not dinner. We're about to see what dinner looks like. She goes to dinner every night, but she's never at dinner. She goes to dinner every night at the best restaurants, but she never eats food together with friends. She never gathers around the table. She never experiences the infinity of value of people coming together to eat and break bread and drink wine together. She says, let's go to dinner. But she doesn't know how to have dinner. So we meet her right before her death, right? We know the comet's about to strike. She's with her co-host. They're at an empty bar. And what does he say to her? You want to fuck? You want to pray? What does she say? She says, no, I'd rather drink and talk shit about people. And what is she saying? She's saying, and she's honest in this tragic way. She says, I have no access to Eros. Eros means I'm inside the circle. Pseudo-Eros means I talk shit about people. I place people outside the circle, win-lose metrics, to give myself the illusion that I'm inside the circle. So win-lose metrics success story is all pseudo-Eros. That's the pseudo-Eros moment. So in her moment of responding to death, she can't even then find Eros because I can only find Eros at the moment of my death if I've lived in Eros throughout my life. She's lived in pseudo-Eros. When I've lived in Eros throughout my life, I actually can come to the moment of my death and be fearless and actually experience the eternity that resides in the moment. And if I've made mistakes, we all make mistakes. I can correct them. I shift my intention. I recognize the mistake and I transform. That's completely perfect. There's no one who hasn't made mistakes. But she can't transform. Randall is the figure who transforms in the movie, but Peter Ishmael can't transform, right? And Philip, Kate's boyfriend, can't transform. And Bree can't transform. They're monological figures who are linear stick figures who can't transform. It's Randall who transforms. It's Yule who transforms, right? It's Kate, right, who deepens through the movie. So now let's take a look at the key scene. Okay, we're going to end with these two scenes, and they're astonishingly beautiful and they're astonishingly important. And we're going to start with a very short clip, which is just a minute. Right, and this short clip, right, is number 14, and I'm saying number 14, right, for Christina Amelon Taheli, number 14, and this is a shopping scene. This is right before the world's about to end. Okay, it's a shopping scene. right before the world's about to end, an incredible scene. All right, let's go to 14. And Yule is the young man, right, who has fallen in love with Bree and asked her to marry him, right, as he knows the world's ending, right? This incredible scene, right? And so now Yule is together with Randall. Randall wants to come home. He's going home to his wife, right? He realizes, right, he realizes where love is, right? He's been asking the whole movie, I want to know what love is. Now he has a sense of what love is. He says, in his great speech, when he explodes on television, he has one beautiful line. He says, I just want to go home, right? He actually realizes there's something called home. So he's going back to his kids. He's going back to his wife. And Teddy Oglethorpe, right, the wonderful head, right, of the planetary agency that's supposed to deflect comets, who's been in total integrity the entire movie, he comes, right, to the dinner. He's coming to the dinner. He shows up. That's because friends find each other. And Yule comes to the dinner. So we're right before the dinner. And the dinner's going to be a gathering, not of family, but of evolutionary family, right? The dinner's going to be a mix of biological family and the close friends that we're actually walking together in evolutionary family. And you want to be not just with your biological family. At the moment of your death, you want to gather the people that matter. You're with your evolutionary family. So we're at this shopping scene 1 second before we're about to gather for dinner. So let's take a look at the shopping scene 14. It'll take just 1 minute, and then we're going to see the last scene.
Look at this, Kate. They have wild salmon. Look at the difference between that and the farm-raised stuff. You see how that looks just, I don't know, looks fake, right? Hey, why don't you go find some, what are the little potatoes called, the tiny ones?
Fingerling potatoes?
Yeah,
Oh, I fucking love fingerling potatoes.
Let's get finger.
Do you want to say something too?
Oh, it's beautiful, yeah. What up, world? Jason Orlean, Chief of Staff, United States. I've been noticing a lot of prayers recently for people during this time, and I commend that. But I also want to give a prayer for stuff. There's dope stuff, like material stuff, like sick apartments and watches and cars, and clothes and shit that could all go away. And I don't want to see that stuff go away, so I'm gonna say a prayer for that stuff. Amen.
So we just got 2 more scenes after this, but this is the, right? Stay close here. So what happens? So they're shopping, Yule together with Kate, right, and Randall. And what are they excited about? They know the world's, right, it's all about, we're right before death. They're going shopping together. And he says, do you like those little potatoes? I love those potatoes, right? Now, those potatoes, they're ordinary. They're the beauty of ordinary life, right? Addiction, and we live in a society which is addicted to cover up the hole. Addiction is the inability to get pleasure from the ordinary pleasures of life. That's what addiction is. That's the definition of addiction. The inability to get pleasure from the ordinary pleasures of life. Enlightenment is the Zen master, for example, at the Japanese tea ceremony, who's ecstatic with pleasure drinking tea, right? You get that distinction? The distinction between these 2 archetypes. So there's a moment in which we're all enlightened, right? The moment we're all enlightened, if we know how to meet it, is when death presses us into life. And that's what Rilke was talking about in the quote that which we began in his letter to the Countess, who was his good friend. When death actually is the one thing that presses me into yes, right? He says, life is always yes and no, but death presses me, right? Death presses me into the realization that it's all yes. It's all yes. Fingerling potatoes, yes, right? Oh, it's the wild salmon, right? It's not the farm-raised salmon, yes, right? We get the yes, and then the contrast, right, is to there's this prayer, right? Remember that in the earlier scene, right, her co-host says to Bree, you want to fuck or you want to pray? She doesn't even know what that means. Now here, Janie Orlean asks her son, do you want to offer a final prayer? And you're thinking, okay, maybe now he's potentially before his death. He's going to offer a prayer. What does he offer a prayer for? For stuff, for that sick stuff. Meaning, he calls it sick stuff, meaning the stuff of win-lose metrics. Right? Because he hasn't been in Eros. He can't find it in his moment of death. He can't find it when he's facing the ultimate. He can't taste it or feel it. So the only thing he can pray for is for pseudo-eros, right? A prayer that's not a prayer, okay? And now we come, we're going to take a look at, and each one is about 3 minutes, then we're done, right? But these two, right, this is where we're going for. Everything today was for this next, few minutes. Okay, so here we go. So the first, right, the two last scenes. The first scene I want to show you of the two last scenes, and they're both short, but they're both insanely important. First one is 3 minutes and 40 seconds. It's right 10D, and I want to call these the sweetness scenes. And the word sweetness appears in the movie 3 different times. And again, remember patterns. You don't even notice it, right? The 3 sweetness scenes. It appears in the movie 3 times, and it's unbelievably important, okay? So everything we did today was for these next few minutes, okay? So together, heart open, we're at dinner together, and we raise our glasses. We're having dinner together. We're loving each other. We're outrageous lovers. We're here to play a larger game. We're here to be in eros, not in pseudo-eros. We're here to commit to the evolution of love. We're here to face existential risk and catastrophic risk, right, with new possibility, because God is the possibility of possibility. Okay, this is a moment of sweetness together. So it's so good to be together. It's so good to see each other's faces, right? And let's take a look, right? The 3 sweetness scenes, 3 minutes and 48. We're going to pull this together. It'll blow your heart and mind open. And what a joy and a sweetness, right, to be together, right, in this moment, to do this study, but not intellectual study, deep, cultural, going to the inside of the inside, to begin to write the new story, to evolve the source code. Take us inside, Christina.
I don't know, I'm starting to think that all this end of the world stuff's bullshit.
It's not. It's definitely happening. I've seen it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if God wanted to destroy the earth, he would destroy the earth.
You believe in God?
Yeah, I mean, my parents raised me evangelical, and I hate them, but I found my own way to it, my own relationship. I'd appreciate it if you didn't advertise it, though.
I won't tell anybody. I think it's kind of sweet.
Listen to this part. Although there are oceans we must cross, mountains we must climb, I know that every gain must have a loss. So pray that our loss is nothing but time.
Okay, I gotta ask you something.
What?
Dr. Minnie, can I be vulnerable in your car?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've met a lot of people and I've never met anyone like you, and I feel a connection with you on a level that I don't know, I haven't felt with anyone else. And going on a limb, but would you want to spend more time together? Like, maybe even get engaged or something?
Wow.
Are you laughing? No?
I'm smiling.
Oh,
Sure.
This is sweet.
Why not?
Wow. This is pretty sweet. Have a family dinner.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad.
Hey, guys. Hey. What do you say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is Kate.
I know.
I got those bags. Let me grab them. Nice to meet you. I'm Yule.
Yule.
I'm a Fire Puma 142 on Twitch. You game?
Really doubtful she knows.
Who said I did?
Got these for you.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
I'm so sorry. You have no idea. I really am.
I know. I missed you.
Missed you so much.
When we dated in college, I fucked Aaron Tran.
No.
Yeah, so.
Oh my god. Do you try one of these raw LEDs?
Yeah.
Try that one. Try one of these.
That is really good.
Really good, right? Sweeter than you think. Try one of these. What?
You don't like it, Emmett.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm late, but not empty handed.
Evan, Marshall, June, this is Dr. Olenthorpe, all right?
So we got three sweetnesses, okay? 3 times in the movie. Now stay close for a second, okay? In consciousness, in the great interior sciences, we talk about 3 levels of consciousness. The first one is called submission. Submission is you fall in love. You start, doing photography. You're doing it all the time. You're just totally in, right? You're completely ecstatic because you've met someone new. You've got a new idea. You're going to a new place. It's the initial high that we get when we fall into the great excitement of life. That's called submission. Let's call it falling in love. But we always get to level 2. And level 2 is we fall out of love. We get drawn into the win-lose metrics. We get drawn into the power struggle. We get drawn into the success story. We can't feel the initial flush of love. That's called separation. Separation, okay? But when you stay in, when you stay with the hard time, right? Randall and his wife, June, even though they seem to be separated, but they didn't leave each other in their hearts. They didn't look away. When you stay in, you can get to level 3. And level 3 is called in all the great traditions, one version or another. In Hebrew, it's hamtaka, which means sweetness. And what's sweetness? Sweetness is, right? The first level, submission, is what we call pre-tragic. You're just free gift by the universe. You're ecstatic. You're excited. The second level is tragic, right? It's the place where the tragic is the win-lose metrics. The tragic is the success story. The tragic is the power struggle. The tragic is when you're lost in your traumas and you can't get through your traumas and you're stuck in your old patterns and you keep going round and round. But then there's this a moment when we face the depth of life. And sometimes it's only death that presses us into the great yes of life. That's Rilke where we started, right? We get that yes, that's sweetness. And what is sweetness? So here's sweetness. It's one of my favorite quotes from Yeats. Right? If we've been together, you've heard it before. When such as I cast out remorse, so great a sweetness fills my breast. We can dance and we can sing. We're blessed by everything. And everything we look upon is blessed. That's sweetness. So what are the 3 sweetness scenes, friends, just in 1 minute? The first scene, Yule and Kate are on a rooftop, and he's saying, this end of the world thing, bullshit. And she says, no, it's real. And then he says, well, if God wanted to destroy the world, and she says, what do you mean? God? You believe in God? Right? Like, wow. So you get it? The movie makers don't have a conception of God. Right? The movie makers don't understand that the God you don't believe in doesn't exist. Right? So she represents culture. God? That's for the fundamentalists, man. We're the people making culture. We're the tech people. We're the media people. And he says, yeah, my parents were evangelical. I kind of hate them, but I found my own way there. And he says, but do me a favor, don't tell anyone. And what does she say? You remember what she says? That's sweet. What does she mean by sweet? She senses something that's kind of sweet. That's authentic. It's real. There's something here that's special, that's important. She recognizes him in a new way. She can see him. Then they're in the back of the car. They're in the back seat of the car. And that song is playing on the radio. Oceans we must cross and mountains we must climb. And we pray that our only loss. So this prayer finds its way in. There's this prayer that finds its way in. We pray that our only loss is time. That's playing on the radio. And Randall's explaining the song, right? This, right, to Kate. They're driving home. he's driving home. Remember, he had said on television, I just want to go home. Randall just wants to go home. So he's going home to his wife. The world's about to end, right? They're facing death, right? And then he says from the back seat, Yule's in the back seat, and he says, Dr. Mindy, could I be vulnerable, in your car? And he says to Kate, I got to ask you something. Like, you're not like anyone, I've ever met. And I know I'm going out on a limb, right? I mean, right? They're facing death, right? But it doesn't matter because love is forever. You see, love is eternity. Do you get that? Right? When we really love each other, we start talking about forever. Love participates in eternity. Love is the very quality, right, of the universe, right? So there's this moment where he says, can I go out on a limb, right? And he says, you want to get engaged? Do you want to get engaged, right? And she says, what does she say? She says, sure. And what does Randall say? He says, that's pretty sweet. All right, that's pretty sweet, okay? So wow. So David, just read us the code. It's going to take 1 second. David, give us the code. It's a gorgeous code. It's about this moment. This code is about this moment and about the dinner we're about to see before we close. So David, can you give us this code? Can you read us this code? Full power, brother.
Amen. There is science and there is scientism. Science is sacred. Scientism is dogma and therefore stands against truth, goodness, and beauty. There are some dogmatic physicists who claim without basis the impartiality of the universe. But the deepest integration of the interior and exterior sciences reveal that this claim is exactly not the case. The universe is partial to love. Love is backed by the universe, but it is deeper. Love is the universe. Who I am is revealed by our sacred creed, which we recite at the moment of death. We say, I love you. And this itself is the evolution of love.
Oh my God, right? Everyone get that? So in other words, the movie, right, is made, right, by the win-lose metrics culture that's lost a vision of a deeper vision of value. It has a caricature of value, which is pre-modern, and a caricature of God that's pre-modern, right? And we haven't articulated a new source code, right? And so the claim is not of science, but of dogmatic scientism, the universe is empty. It's impartial, and that's not true. The universe is not impartial. The universe is partial. The universe is partial to love. And actually, when you stand for real at the moment of your death, you know that everything matters, and you know that there's a forever beyond that moment. And he's feeling into the forever. Even though, right, Yule is facing his death, right, when he steps into love, he has the experience of forever. So even though there's only a few hours left to planet Earth, he says, could we spend more time? Isn't that a wild set? Isn't that gorgeous, everybody? And I don't think the movie makers even quite got it, right? It was cute, but it's more than cute, right? There's a deeper voice, right? Let's spend more time. Let's spend more time in eternity. And eternity is not time that goes on forever, as Wittgenstein already pointed out to us. Eternity is beneath time, right? Eternity is beneath time, and it's right here. And when we step into love, we step into forever. And it's the experience of love itself, which tells me that we're going to all get together again, that it's not over when it's over, right? Love tells me it's an anthro-ontological knowing of forever, of eternity, of the space beneath time. And so even though, again, there's a few hours left, he can completely seriously and gorgeously, right, look at Kate. And he says, are you laughing at me? She says, no, I'm smiling. And it's the first time in the movie we see her relaxed and in her full radiance. She's the goddess in her radiance because she's being loved. Can we spend more time? Could we get engaged? And then Randall says, he doesn't know anything about submission and separation and sweetness that you and I were talking about here, but he gets it. Culture gets it anyways. He says, that's pretty sweet. Right? That's hamtaka. That's sweetness. Right? That's level 3. That's the eternity that resides in a moment. And that's death that presses us into the great yes of life that only death reminds us of. And finally, right, the third clip, right? He comes home and he's at the door and he's facing June. And the last time he's seen his wife, June, was in that hotel room scene that we saw earlier when she throws his pills at him, says, you take care of Randall, right? And he says, right, what do you say? I mean, can we have dinner? And she looks at him and she says, yes. And they start to talk, right? As the viewer says, I'm so right. And he says, I got you flowers, right? And what does she say? She says, sweet, right? That's so sweet. And she understands that those flowers are not about lasting forever. They're again about, those flowers are the Eros of Cosmos. What is a flower? A flower is beauty that seduces the bee to pollinate the flower, right? To spread life. That's what a flower is. It's the seduction of beauty for the sake of life. So he gives her flowers because he understands not only even in the face of death, especially in the face of death, I understand that the flower, right, the Eros, the seduction towards life, right, is everything, and that overcomes everything. He says, right, she says, that's so sweet. That's so sweet, right? And they hug each other. And she says, I missed you so much. I love you. I missed you so much. And then she says, and by the way, when we were in college, I fucked that guy, right? It's like, wow. Okay, now we're ready for the final scene. And everything today was for this last scene. Okay, so this is the very, very last scene. The last scene we're going to do today. This is the end of the movie. We're going to take a look, right, together, right? It's only 4 minutes and 20 seconds. And we're going to finish with this. 15E. This is the dinner scene. Now, remember the dinner scene. Remember earlier, as we said a few minutes ago, when Bree is in bed with Randall, she says, okay, let's go have dinner. But she doesn't know how to have dinner. She's never had a dinner in her entire life, right? When the two radio show hosts, Bree with her co-host, are together in the bar, they don't know how to have dinner together, right? They don't have dinner. She says, want to fuck you, want to pray, right? Let's drink and talk shit about people. They don't know how to have dinner, right? Dinner's the whole story. We're now at the moment of death, and we're pressed into life. This is an incredible scene. Let's take a look, right? The dinner scene, and let's raise our glasses. We're together. This matters, right? It matters infinitely, right? We know how to have dinner together. We know how to love each other, right? We're a band of outrageous lovers. We're participating in the evolution of love. We're taking responsibility for the whole thing. Cheers. L'chaim, let's have dinner together. Let's look at that scene. It's so ecstatic to be with you. Let's go inside. Here we go.
You got the head seat right there, right?
You're way too kind, Randall. Thank you.
Big doctor. Hey, cheers, everyone, huh?
Cheers.
Love you, baby.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for being here. It's
Thank
so
you.
special.
Beautiful. Thank you, pal.
It really is. And it's really good to have you home.
Dr. Mindy got really famous.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That's right. Okay. Yep, I was on magazine covers and everything, I know.
You looked great.
I'll take your shots.
I'm thankful for that night I fell asleep out in the backyard. Woke up face to face with a baby deer.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was the best day of my life.
I'm grateful we tried.
Man, oh man, did we try.
Well, we're not the most religious here in the Mindy household, but should we say amen? Should we do that?
I mean, don't look at me. I don't know how to say. Why you just say amen? I don't.
I got this. I got it. Dearest Father and Almighty Creator, we ask for your grace tonight, despite our pride, your forgiveness, despite our doubt. Most of all, Lord, we ask for your love to soothe us through these dark times. May we face whatever is to come in your divine will with courage and open hearts of acceptance. Amen.
Amen. Wow, you's got some church game.
That was beautiful.
I'm definitely gonna have some more of this apple pie. It's so good.
Oh, it's actually store-bought, but you really can't tell.
If I'm to be completely honest, which at this moment, why not? I actually like the junky taste of store-bought better than homemade.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. No.
I'm not kidding.
No, I know what he means. It's like a childhood memory thing.
Nothing's better than homemade, right?
This coffee doesn't taste store-bought, is it?
I grind my own beans, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a coffee nut. Serious? Every time you have coffee, you have to grind your beans?
Yeah, Randall is very particular about his coffee.
You can get that way about tea.
The thing of it is we really did have everything, didn't we? I mean, when you think about it.
So there we are, right? What does she say? June says, it's really good to have you home. Now, from the perspective of the win-lose metrics, should that matter, friends? Home is like 4 more minutes, right? What do you mean it's really good to have you home, right? Is this ordinary love? Is this some status and security where I've got you home? There's 4 more minutes to the world, friends. But it's really good to have you home. And it's actually true. It's really good to have you home because we're in the eternity that resides in the moment. We're underneath time. We're in value itself, right? And, right, there's this moment where his son says to him, oh, Dr. Mindy got really famous. But actually, when I'm facing death, fame, which is one of the currencies of the rivalrous conflict win-lose metrics, it's a joke. It's so obvious we've pierced the illusion. We actually get it now, right? And what does Randall say to June and June say to Randall? Say, I love you, right? I love you, right? And our sacred creed is what we say at the moment of our death, right? And today we actually understand something in the world. We might still say a particular mantra in Hinduism. We might say a particular formula in Buddhism or in Judaism or Christianity about Christ, about Shema Yisrael. But actually, our shared sacred creed is I love you. And I've shared with you before, right? When we recovered the phone transcripts from the World Trade Center, when people had a few seconds left to live, what did they say when they called home? They didn't say any of the old sacred creeds. Everyone said to each other, I love you, right? Because we sense, it's incoherent, but it wants to emerge. We sense that actually the universe is a love story, right? And I've spent the last 10 years of my life, right, gathering information that this was true, right? Gathering information, scientific information, interior sciences, exterior sciences. We're working now in the centers to actually be able to demonstrate in the next 5 years in a series of books, right? In a way that just like, oh my God, that actually reality is a love story. That's actually true. It's not a new age idea. It's not a fundamental study. It's not a declaration. I actually just wrote the other day, a guy named David Ray Griffin, a beautiful man. He's the greatest Whitehead scholar in the world. And I just contacted him. And I said, I said, I'm not a reader of Whitehead, but I believe he supports this idea that I'm trying to suggest with our friends of the cosmoerotic universe, the intimate universe. And he wrote back and he said, I have aphasia, I have cancer, I can't get on the phone. And I asked if we could ask him a bunch of questions. And here he is right before him, this beautiful man, is one of the most brilliant scholars. And I asked him, does Whitehead support this notion? He writes back, absolutely. Whitehead supports this. I was so happy. It was just on Friday. Right, so here we are, right? Here we are. I love you, I love you. So after they said, I love you, what's the next thing they do? Gratitude. What am I grateful for? And I saw the dear baby-faced, his son says, when I woke up. And you asked Jennifer Lawrence, what are you grateful for? She said, I'm grateful we tried, right? And they don't know what to do. And so someone says, should we say amen? Okay. He says, the Mindy household's not very religious. I'm not sure how we would do that. And he says to his wife, do you want to say something? And June says, don't look at me. And then Yule says, he says, I got this. Right? Everyone say, wow, I got this. And they go to pray. Right? They go to pray, but it's not fundamentalist prayer. It's not prayer to a cosmic vending machine God. Right? Right? It's not prayer owned by an ethnocentric religion that's homophobic and anti-body and claims, right, that only my dogma, right, will take you home. No, it's actually prayer, which is when I contact the infinity of intimacy that lives in me. And in this moment before death of ultimate intimacy, I want to turn to intimacy at its source and have a conversation and be held and to hold, right? Right? God's not the infinity of power. God's the infinity of intimacy. And that intimacy, right, which suffuses cosmos, which is an intimate universe. He says, I got this, and they join hands. They just know to join hands because the universe is a love story, so we know to join hands, of course. How do we know? Who told us? It's not a dogma. It's in our bodies, right? In our bodies, we know that at this moment we join hands, and he says, oh my God, right? Father, right? Creator. Creator's the mother, the matrix, right? Almighty creator. He says, right? We're asking for your grace, right? Right? Your grace, even though we struggle with our pride, your forgiveness, right? Despite our doubt, right? But most of all, he says, we ask for your love, right? We ask for your love, and we know it's there, and we're loving each other right now. And that love is mad, gorgeous eternity. We love each other madly because it's the only possible way to be sane. And as he finishes the prayer, right, to live with courage, right, and with an open heart. And they talk for a couple of minutes about whether it's store-bought or not store-bought. And, let me admit, I really like store-bought, and I make my own coffee. And it's the very last scene. And what does he say? He says, and let's look at each other now, friends. What does he say? He says, we really did have everything, didn't we? He says, we really did have everything, didn't we? Wow, friends, we really do have everything. We're a band of outrageous lovers. For some reason, we've been drawn together, just like particular atoms are drawn together to form molecules. We're a molecule, right? We're a superorganism. We love each other madly. We're having dinner together, and we have a mad commitment. We're going to tell the new story. We're going to do everything we can. We're going to resource it. We're going to create it, right? We're going to research. We're going to search. We're going to love each other. We're going to write. We're going to tell a new story at a Darwin level, at a Freud level, where we actually bring together all the truths of the interior and exterior sciences. We call them the tenets of intimacy. And we're going to share that story. We're going to share that story as Jesus shared his story. We're going to share the story as Abraham shared his story. We're going to share his story as Lao Tzu shared his story. We're going to share the story as Buddha shared the story. And we're going to be Buddha together. We're going to be Abraham together. We're going to be Jesus together. We're going to be Lao Tzu together. And we're going to be Abhinavagupta together. We're going to actually say, right, it's not over. The story hasn't been told, right? There's a new story to tell, and it's ours to tell. And we're going to tell it together with every fiber of passion in our being. Oh my God. So welcome, everyone. Welcome home. Welcome to dinner. Welcome to dinner.